What is going on, Life Fitness Coaches? Welcome to another episode of the Change Lives Make Money Online Trainer podcast. It's your boy, Brian Mark. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about this idea that I am not my thoughts. And the title of today's podcast is based around what is currently happening right now. And Kirsten is dealing with morning sickness. He had a really cool insight the other day, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And it was this idea that I am not my thoughts. And we were in the cab. We were on the way here, and Kirsten was super sick. And for those of you guys, I've never been through first trimester, so I have no idea what she's going through. For those of you ladies that have been through first trimester, you know what she's going through. She was on the cab ride on the way to the hotel, and she was getting really sick. And as she was getting sick, she kept repeating to herself, this is my body processing this. I am not sick.
I'm growing a baby.
I'm growing a baby. I'm not sick. I'm growing a baby. I'm not sick. And then I asked her, I'm like, what are you doing? And then she basically said, my body is experiencing this, I'm growing a human inside of it. And she was saying to herself, I feel really sick. I feel really sick. And then she shifted that mindset to, I'm growing a baby. I'm not sick, because it's this idea that I'm not my thoughts, and I'm not identifying with being sick. I'm just experiencing it and moving through it.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm just going to tell you guys right now, I definitely don't feel very well right in this very moment. I could gag again, which I've already done on this.
To be fair, I did say we could not do the podcast.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it. Just sometimes it's I don't know if it's the room, this angle, this water, something's just making me feel super fucking gagged right now. Yeah, so I have been feeling actually really good the last couple days, but on the cab ride here, it was so I literally puked in my mouth and had to swallow it back because I was we're driving on a highway and I don't want to puke all over this guy's cab. And in that moment, I was I could almost take myself out and witness my body going through this. I don't even want to call it sickness. I feel like it's just the growing pains of growing a human inside of your body. And that thought alone just made me look at the whole situation a little bit lighter. Whenever I feel sick and I say, I'm so sick, it just becomes more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And although it didn't take the actual nauseous feeling away, it made me just look at the whole experience a little bit lighter. I was this is all a part of the process. And a lot of people are are you taking because there's a prescription you can take, and there's literally nothing wrong with that. But unless I absolutely have to, I just want my body to go through everything that it needs to go through. I don't want to try and mask the feelings. I don't want to I just want to really allow it to go through it and try and look at it from a more lighter perspective versus, oh my God, I'm so sick, which I am very gaggy. I am very pukey. I am not feeling 100% like myself, but I think there's ways for us to kind of experience it in a little bit of a lighter sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually resonate with that a lot, not because I've grown a baby inside of me or that I have any idea what she's going through. So I'm not going to make those jokes right now. Probably not the right time. But I resonate with the idea that when I overcame my addiction, I had to disassociate myself from my thoughts, in the sense that I had to realize that what I was thinking wasn't actually mine. It didn't belong to me. It was just an experience that I was having. And so when I stopped doing drugs cold turkey, literally every day I'd have these voices in my head that were you need to go get some, 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 you need to go get some. And I had to go into my mind and literally witness my mind trying to fiend for these things. And I had to witness and say I'm not that. That isn't me. That is my mind experiencing something, and that's my body experiencing cravings. But I am not that. I'm the person that can see that and have the awareness of it.
Well, if we take away all of the thoughts we've ever had in our own head, we probably have a pretty decent relationship with ourselves, because the only thing that's caused chaos with the relationship that we have with ourselves is the thoughts that we've allowed to spiral. So something that has been super interesting to me lately is just understanding that we almost look at the thoughts inside of our head as ourself. It is ourself saying those things. But if we can separate, and the book that I'm reading right now talks about how say you separate the two, and it was a roommate talking to you the way that you talk to yourself, right? So say you had a roommate and the roommate was go get drugs, knowing, and your roommate knowing that you're trying to get clean. Would you continue living with that roommate? Would you continue being friends with that person? No. And I think you can make that choice. You don't have to listen to the voice in your head. And it's almost we take what the voice in our head says at face value. So if the voice in our head says that we don't look good, or we are overweight, or we are ugly, or we are not worthy, we take that as face value, which is absolutely crazy. Because again, if a random person came up to you on the street and said something to you, like, you're not just going to believe it right off. You're not just going to believe it.
It's so crazy. I just had this like weird thought. It's so crazy that we don't have like, when's the last time you had an open dialogue conversation about the voice in your head?
Yeah.
We just never talk about it.
No.
It's like one of those things
And
that
everybody has it.
everybody
Whether it's
has
good or
it,
bad.
but nobody
Yeah.
talks about it. Like
Yeah.
it's just like none of us actively discuss the fact that we all have a voice inside of our head at all times. It's like
Mhm.
either like sometimes your voice in your head is your friend and sometimes it's your fucking enemy. But we literally just, it's like one of those things like money. Like
Yeah.
people just don't discuss money. It's just one of
Well,
those things that nobody talks about.
And the crazy thing is too, that even for you, I'd say the voice inside of your head is, you do have that like little like negative guy on your shoulder sometimes, but a lot of the times it's positive. But if the voice inside of your head is positive, it's still taking you away from the present moment. If you're sitting at dinner with your family and you're thinking about how much money your business has made and how abundant and how grateful you are, you're not actually in the moment with your family. You are listening to the voice inside your head. So whether it's good or whether it's bad, a lot of the time, what it does is it takes you out of the present moment. So instead of actually being at dinner, you are again conversing with this invisible person inside of your head. So I think like something that I want to work on is really just like sitting and just actually being there, even if it's just outside. Like a lot of the time we're outside and we're laying there and we're soaking up the sun, but I'm not soaking up the sun. I'm soaking up all of the things that are going on inside my head. I'm thinking about what time I'm going to go to the gym at. What am I going to eat for lunch? And even though those aren't bad things and they're not causing me to feel poor about myself, they are taking me away from the actual moment that I'm living in.
Yeah, I have like a counter suggestion or like counter a perspective on that. Like, yes, I think that's important, being present. And like when I write about like how I think most people are used by their mind. And so most people are used by their mind, meaning that like their mind will think a thought about how they feel about themselves, or their mind will have an idea of like what's possible for themselves, or their mind will tell them that they're tired and so they won't go to the gym. Like I think most people are like literally used by their mind. They're not using their mind, they are used by their mind. Like they're just controlled by the thoughts that they have on a day-to-day basis, and they're not actively directing them, guiding them, whatever. They're just like victims to their own conditioning. But the way that I view like mindset work is like, I agree. I think that there needs to be like times where like you're just fully present and just like being, and that's something that I'm working on as well. But I also think that there are times where you like need to actively use your mind in order to construct whatever it is that you're trying to build. And like, this is where we talk about vision. And by the way, if you're my client, I'm going to be talking about visualization in our mindset call. So fucking get ready. But I also think that like, you need to be able to use your mind to like actively construct the type of life that you want to live. Because I think that when you go into your mind and you use it for productive things and you build your imagination and you build your like your inner best friend instead of your inner critic, and you start like basically directing the thoughts to be more positive than negative. And I don't think you ever get to a place where like every single thought you think is positive. And I think if you did, it would defeat the purpose of contrast. I think having some negative thoughts makes you appreciate the positive ones. But I think that while you're using your mind, you're using it to like construct your ideal life and build your ideal life in your imagination and imagine the best possible case scenario and like flip negative things into positive things. But then, so that's when you're using it. But I also think that it's important to just be present. I think it's both.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I think that it's both. I think like we're never going to get to a place where we completely just silence our thoughts. And I also think like over the last year, I have like become a team with my mind for the most part. And I can really like disassociate from the thoughts that come up that don't serve me and dive into the ones that do. And I don't think I'd ever want to get to a place where I didn't have that little voice in my head, because sometimes it's the thing that gets me to go up on stage and absolutely fucking crush it. Sometimes it's the thing that gets me to go to the gym and be super intentional. But I think a lot of people could quiet it, even if it's not negative, because I think we are really caught up in just things. And a lot of the time we aren't just actually sitting in the moments that are passing us. I know for me, there's been so many times where I've like been somewhere, but not actually been somewhere. Right. And so for me, it's really about just stepping more into presence. Like yesterday when we went out and I was like, oh, I didn't even bring my phone, but I didn't even notice that I hadn't brought my phone because I didn't even go to look at it. So that was really cool, because usually I have to grab my phone, tell myself in my head, you don't want to look at your phone, and put it away. So I realized I had made progress because I didn't even go to grab my phone. I didn't even know that I didn't have my phone with me. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. That is me living more in the moment.
I also want to touch on this because, like, for those people that are listening to this podcast, and maybe this is like going over your head, and you're like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? It's really hard to conceptualize doing the mindset work, right? Like, it's really hard to conceptualize, like, how do I measure how happy I am? Or how do I measure whether or not my mind is productive? How do I measure whether or not my mind is like positive? It's like, it's hard to measure happiness. It's hard to measure personal development. It's hard to measure self-development, which is why I honestly believe that everything has a foundation in fitness, because when you're doing that mindset work and you're doing the work to like become a more positive, more optimistic, more grateful, more like just like energetic, just happier person, it's hard to see tangible results when you're like working with your thoughts, which is why I believe that fitness is like the vehicle for everything. Because when you're working on your fitness goals and you're using your mind to transform your body, like your body is like a physical representation of what your mind looks like, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I can see how you show up because when I see your body, like it tells me how you show up in your mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Gives you something tangible to focus on
Yeah.
instead of just being in your thoughts and fucking arbitrarily like being like, I'm gonna work on my thoughts.
Yeah. And you, like
There's
you
no
said,
there's
yeah.
no unit of measurement.
Mm-hmm. I also think like if I think back to where I'm currently at right now, if I allowed my thoughts, like my negative thoughts to take over, if I was constantly reaffirming to myself, I'm not feeling well, I'm not feeling well, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, I think that I probably would have not gone to the gym at all because I would have just allowed myself. But instead, I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself grace throughout these few months.
Mhm.
And so instead of going to the gym at 5 a.m., if I get there at 7 a.m., I'm not beating myself up. I'm not saying, oh, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it like reframing the way that I thought about this whole process has helped me just optimize the time that I do have where I feel good.
Mhm.
Whereas I think if I would have allowed myself to just be like, I don't feel good, I'm not like, I just would not move my body. I would just sit on the couch all day, every day. And even if you're at a place right now where you are sick or you're not feeling well or whatever it is, and like your body is screaming for rest, like it does not help you to rest and also beat yourself up. Like it takes a lot of energy to think poorly of yourself, right? So it's like the best case scenario is if you have to rest, allow yourself to rest and ask yourself what you can do that would make yourself proud in this moment.
I think a really good awareness exercise to determine like what's going on inside of your head right now is like every single person listening to this podcast right now, just take a deep breath. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to like just hear the answer in your own head. Do you love yourself? Do you love yourself? What came up for you?
It was like, yes, but then I started like chitter chattering. I was like, oh, buddy, you did not feel good this morning. I was feeling you guys like not.
That's interesting though.
Yeah.
Like you ask yourself a question and you can hear the response
Yeah.
and it gives you the awareness of like your.
Yeah. And I think the idea too is to ask that question and then to like, you don't need to sit and think about the answer. Like you could just sit and yes and allow yes to just be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the moment that you start chitter chattering, you're almost like again arguing with that like inner critic, that roommate that like you don't have to listen to. So for me, the initial answer was yes. And then I was like, oh, but like you had a bit of a rough morning this morning, right? But like that's just unnecessary because my initial answer was yes. And if my initial answer was no, I think that's like a big problem. I think you can be loved by every single person in your life, but if you don't love yourself, you will not be able to receive that love. And so I think the life that you like have always been born to live starts with self-love. I literally think it is the foundation for everything. Because like you operate from a place of self-hate. Certainly you can make some moves, you can make some big changes, but if your constant state of mind is hate and anger and resentment, like you can't hate yourself into loving yourself. Like you have to at some point start changing the way that you feel about yourself and start operating from a place of self-love and understand that self-love doesn't equal complacency. Doesn't mean that you can't work on yourself. It just means that you're deciding that I'm going to operate from a place of self-love. And to add on to that, if you're here and you're watching this, it doesn't matter like if you're overweight right now, if you've been a bad person in the past, it doesn't matter all of those things. Like your body has taken you to this live stream or to this podcast, which to me is like a very big reason to show it love.
Listen, I'm a big believer that I am is a very bold statement. I am is a very bold statement. I am is a very bold statement. So when you say, I am anxious, I am depressed, I am sad, I am overwhelmed, I am overworked, I am tired. Like, I believe I am is a very fucking powerful statement because the I in you can literally be anything. You can be, I am powerful, I am worthy, I am deserving, I am love, I am abundant, I am success, I am him. Like you can literally attach the I am to anything.
Anything.
And so choosing to attach the I am anxious, I am sad, I am depressed, I am overwhelmed. Like you were literally robbing yourself of your own power. But the good news is that you just need to take it back by changing the way that the things that you think and the things that you say. I'll give you something practical and then I'll get you to give something practical. For something that I do when I notice my thoughts running rampant and I can't control them, because that still happens to me. When my thoughts are running rampant and I can't control them, I affirm the opposite out loud. And so let's say I'm like going to bed and I'm anxious about something, whatever the fuck, and I can't control it and I can't get a hold of it. I will start affirming the opposite out loud. I love myself. I'm so fucking grateful for my life. I'm so happy to be alive. I'm so grateful for my life. I love myself. 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 And I'll literally just repeat the opposite out loud. And I'll do that over and over and over again as many times as I need to until I can sense and feel the thoughts starting to shift. What do you do?
Like I do a few things. I think for females, it's like a lot of the time it's important for us to like allow our emotions to come out. I think we'll try to just like change the way we think before actually processing the emotion that came up. So I think that processing is like incredibly important. But I think a perspective shift that could help is like, I think affirmations they work wonders if they eventually lead to you feeling a different way. But if you're operating from a place of self-hate while telling yourself, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am all these things, like you're not going to change the way that you feel about yourself. Like at the end of the day, the feeling has to change because the feeling is going to be the thing that makes you actually feel good, right? Because anyone can say anything. Someone who despises themselves can say, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. So if you feel like you're struggling to say I am and kind of come up with like I am worthy or I am this, I think regardless of if you feel that way, like eventually we can like almost fake it till we make it, or literally say it and say it and say it until eventually we're like, oh, this could be true. But I also think that if you can't say I am worthy or I am lovable or I am all those things and actually feel it, you can say like I am. And I am like is a lot better than I am shit. I don't feel good. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're watching this video, you simply are. You are a human being. You think, you speak, you move. So if you say I am, like I just am. Like I don't have to be happy in this moment. I don't have to be any of these things. I can simply literally just be. And maybe that feels better than the current thought process that you're thinking.
Facts. Oh.
But eventually you want to get to a place where you're like I wake up and I'm like, usually I wake up, not this morning. Usually I wake up and I'm like, I'm a badass bitch.
I'm a badass bitch. I am him.
Bitch vibes.
All right, babe, where do they find you?
You can find me at The Real Kirsten Mark on Instagram, and then honestly, Kirsten Mark across all social media platforms. And I do have the blue checky mark.
Cool. You can find me at The Real Brian Mark on Instagram, Brian Mark on YouTube, on the Change Lives, Make Money on the Journey podcast. Peace.
Peace out, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Hopefully you got some value. If you did, and you want to learn more about how me and my team can help you scale your online fitness business to $10,000 a month, DM me 10K on Instagram at The Real Brian Mark for more information, and I'll reach out to you to see if I can help you grow an online coaching business.